As a scientist, I can tell you that Sundays are only 24 hours long. But with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get every game every Sunday all in one place. That's upwards of 30 hours of NFL in one day. How can there be 30 hours in 24 hours, you ask? I have a theory. Magic. New users get NFL Sunday Ticket for 8 payments of $34.50 per month. Sign up at NFLSundayTicket.com. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games and commercial use. Terms and embargoes apply. Availability varies.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Everybody, and welcome to Howie the Podcast. It's Gav, and you join us for our Saturday morning roundup of all the latest stuff going on in the world of Sunderland. We've got a game tonight over in Portugal, so we're going to chat a little bit about that and, of course, delve into some transfer stuff because we know it's the meaty bits that you lot like the most, and we can chat about some players that might or might not be coming to Sunderland over the summer. As always, we've got Andrew with us. Hello, mate.
Hello. I think I'm talking to you, Gav, more than I am my own mother at the moment. It's
Same, yeah. That's
much happening.
It is, yeah. Well, look, I've got no problem spending time with you, mate. It's great. We've got loads to talk about. Sunderland are giving us loads to talk about, and yeah, it's fun, isn't it? I mean, we've had quite a lot on over the last week or so with the pod because they just keep giving us things to talk about. I mean, people, if you haven't listened, you can go right the way back through the week. Might as well get the plugs in now. We had on this week at the start of the week, we've had the top 10 this week, various news pods. There was the fantastic chat that Chris had with Andy Sixsmith. Now, you got his name wrong there. I'm crap with names, me. Honestly, it's horrendous, isn't it? Andy Sixsmith, who was, of course, a Premier League reporter who covers Newcastle and Sunderland this season. And he was brimming with enthusiasm about the prospect of being able to cover Sunderland for the BBC and Premier League productions. So that one's worth catching up on if you haven't already heard it. He spent last week at the club with staff and players and got to interview a lot of them and talk all about that. But yeah, the club have given us loads to chat about, mate. I mean, the transfer stuff, which we'll get into in a bit. Some of these names, I don't know half of them, but I'm just like, it's great, this. I love chatting about random links to players for 20-odd million euro. It's just minting it.
Oh, it is. It's brilliant. It's a damn sight better than talking about, picking up some plodder on a free from some like League One or League Two side. Which,
Callum McFadden.
yeah. But yeah, you're right. There's so much happening, and the games in Portugal are almost going to get in the way a little bit. We're actually going to be talking about football on a pitch rather than transfer links in newspapers, and the various journalists on social media all seem desperate to get the Sunderland scoops first before their rivals.
That's it. Yeah, this trip to Portugal has came around pretty quick, actually. Like I said this last week when we played South Shields and Gateshead. I was like, well, it doesn't even feel like we've had an off season. Feels like it's just ramped up and up and up to this point. But yeah, the squad's been over in Portugal, I think, since Tuesday, if I'm right in thinking. I think they got there on Tuesday. Certainly the first day of training was Tuesday. And the club have actually been really, really good in keeping us up to date with what's going on through the website and social media and videos and interviews and stuff. I mean, there's a good chat with Reggie Slabreese up on the club website. There's a written interview which was done with the new assistant manager, Vulcano, which I think is a really good read. And people should check that out if they haven't already read it. But these yearly trips abroad for the fans is great, whether you're there or not. I mean, Craig's over there at the minute. Craig, who was of of course, part of this parish. Craig Chapman, he's over in Portugal at the minute, and he'll be getting plenty of photos and videos for our social media of all the goings on in Portugal. But yeah, the club have done a really good job this week with it all, and I think I do think that it's nice as fans to get that sort of insight into what's going on, isn't it? You see the videos of them training and having a carry on and getting to hear from the staff, and so I love all that, mate. The behind the scenes stuff.
It's brilliant. I saw a bit of footage of Lebris on driving along on like a little golf buggy type thing, and he was smiling away, looking happy. And I mean, he probably can't believe his luck, because this time last year, without wanting to sound mean, he was a bit of a nobody. We didn't know who he was. And now fast forward 12 months along, he's back out in the sun. He's preparing for a Premier League season. Everybody's loving him. It seems good, and they do. They look to be having a bit of fun out there whilst working hard, which is, name of the game, I guess.
Yeah, one of my mates, and I stole this crack off him shamelessly for Twitter, so I did post it. But he did say that he looked like Forrest Gump cutting his grass. If you've ever seen that film where he's driving around on the ride-on lawnmower, it did look like that, like even the hat and everything, man. But he's such a relaxed, calm bloke that I think he's just like that at all times. I know he's very detailed and intense, and I mean, if you read that Vulcano interview, he talks about that and says he's one of the most thorough coaches he's ever worked for, one of the most intelligent coaches he's ever worked for. But he's got like two sides of Lebris, I think, and he's very good at balancing that up. He is very into his work. Like, I think, there'll be nobody questioning his commitment to the job. I think he lives and breathes being Sunderland's head coach. But at the same time, he's also very good at projecting this aura of just being calm and collected. And for a young group of players, that must be great. Like, because you hear some interviews with players from down the years about managers they've had and how strict and intense it could be. Or a manager would come in and to really try and make their mark, they would upset a few people just to get a reaction and try and, put their stamp on things. Well, Lebris has managed to do all of this in the most amazing way. And like, when I just see a video of him, it sounds daft. See a video of him riding around on a golf cart. I kind of look at that. I don't feel anything other than relaxed at all times with Lebris in charge. And like, even going into a pre-season, the players going over to Portugal for the training, it's a really interesting balance, that being able to be this really calm figurehead, but also make sure the players are there to work. Like, they haven't gone for a jolly in Portugal. They've went to work hard, and he strikes that balance so well. And I don't know whether that's because all those things I've just said, plus the fact he's assembled this team of staff around him who are obviously also just like him, like very into their work and very thorough. It is great to see.
Oh, without doubt. And I think whether we're talking football or work or whatever, the best managers, the best coaches are the ones who can do a bit of everything. If you've got a manager who is too focused almost, that becomes draining. So yeah, he does work hard. He is committed. He's very thorough in his planning and his tactical setups. But yeah, this is a young bunch, and he seems able to calm it down a bit when need be. Interesting that you said there about the team around him of coaches, Gav. On the footage I saw, it looked as if a lot of these coaches were taking pretty prominent positions in the training sessions. Some of them were doing the talking. Some of them were looking to be leading the drills. And I think that's important. It gives Lebris time to do his more tactical work. It avoids him getting burnt out. It gives the players different voices, but it just suggests that everybody is all on the same page. There isn't a head coach there who's feeling undermined by these people. There isn't a load of assistants there kicking the heels, just putting out the cones. It seems everybody at the moment is aware of what the structure is and how they fit into it. And everybody seems happy with that.
Yeah.
And it's just a few videos we've seen. And of course, the club are not going to put out the 10-minute Royal Rumble punch up they had when somebody didn't pass to their mate or something. But it does seem as if people are out there enjoying themselves and getting some good work put in.
Yeah, I mentioned that interview that he did with the club I think that went out on Thursday, perhaps. Might be wrong in that, but it's worth watching. And he just reaffirmed some of them things I've just said there. He talked about the atmosphere. He said it's good and we're working hard. This part of the season is really important to set the foundations and standards, which I think is often Lebris will talk and he repeats himself a lot. I know it's a different language to him and things. So in his press conferences, he doesn't really give you much to hang on. But if you really do listen closely or read his words closely, what he's communicating at all times is about standards. Like he has set some unbelievable standards for these players, and the new ones coming in have got to learn that quickly. And I think for the ones who are already here, they've got to understand right now you're not a championship player anymore. You're a Premier League player, and we expect more of you now. Like you may well have been one of the best players in the team last season, but there's a lad who we've just paid 25 million euros for breathing down your neck for your place in the team. So if you want to play in the Premier League, you have to be better than him. And standards are so important. And I think when you're going into the Premier League as a newly promoted side where the majority of people are going to write you off and expect you to go straight back down, your standards cannot slip. You either have to thrive or survive. And I don't see Sunderland going into the season in survival mode. I see us going into the season with the attitude like we aren't just coming here to piss around. We're by the time we play West Ham, we will be fully prepared for whatever is to come. And if that's not good enough, then it's not good enough. But all you can do is focus on the bits you have an impact on. That's every day on the training pitch. And that starts in pre-season. And I think we'll get onto it in a bit, but I'm looking forward to the games in Portugal because you're going to see that hard work paying off, I think. Or you're going to get some, you're going to get some oversight on where we're at. And I think Chris talked about that earlier in the week, about just, this kind of giving us some sort of impression of where we're actually at now. So, yeah, I am really keen to just see that work they've put in over there pay off in the games, because the lads will be itching to play football. The training is great, I'm sure, and the drills and the ball work and all of the running, I'm sure, at the end of the day when they've done double sessions, they're absolutely blown out their arses. But at the same time, the most important thing to them is getting out on that pitch and doing 11v11 with a ball.
Yeah. Of course. And for us, we're saying it almost feels as if there wasn't a summer break. For them, they'll be itching to play, because that's what they are, the professional players. I think you're right that there is a challenge this season, and the players who are already here are going to be needing to lift up a level, and the new players are expected to settle in, Gav. But it's not like we are just saying, right, lads, sort yourselves out. We expect 10% more off each and every one of you. You just go and look after it yourselves. We're trying to put things in place that help the players and help the squad meet these challenges. As you say, it looks as if training is intense in the sense that they're working hard. There looks to be a bit of fun there as well and a few laughs and jokes, but deep down they are putting the graft in. The games we've got lined up, they're not against the dog and duck. They're not against some rubbish side who we're just going to steamroller. They're against very good sides with very good players. So we are aware that we've got a big challenge, but we are shaping up and trying to build up to it in a sensible fashion from what I can see.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to seeing some of these new players too. I presume now that we've seen pictures of Noah Siddiqui on the club's social media feeds and stuff, that he'll be available to play. Because there was that question mark. I think there was that was the reason that they weren't involved at South Shields. Siddiqui, Talby, and Adingra. But I think we've seen Adingra training, we've seen Talby training, we've seen Siddiqui training on the footage. So I'm keen to find out whether they play any part. I hope they do. I hope we get to see, just a glimpse of what they're only going to get 45 minutes if they do play. But it'll be nice, won't it, to see what they can do, and they'll be keen to impress if they do get that chance.
Of course, definitely. Like you say, it might only be 45 minutes or what have you, but at this point, it's enough. And yeah, whenever you started a new club, you've got all sorts of things happening behind the scenes. You're trying to get yourself set up with a new house or whatever. Football is the thing that you know and that you can do best. And when you're on the pitch, you can ignore all of that. You just want to get out there and show to your new boss, show to your fans, I deserve to be here, and I'm going to be somebody that you're going to want to watch and going to want to support. So yeah, they'll be itching. Was it Siddiqui was at the South Shields match? Was he?
I think they all were. Apart from Ronaldo, I don't think Ronaldo's even with the group yet. Or was he named in the squad that went over there? I can't remember now.
He was.
I don't think he was he?
No, he was described as having an extended break. I think, presumably because of the Club World Cup. I've got this
in front of us now. The travelling squad that the club named, there was an asterisk next to Ronaldo's name, and they said, we'll meet up with the squad later in the tour.
Right.
So he might well be there right now. It's not too far from where he's been living, is it?
No.
Spain to Portugal. So I imagine he's probably with a group, but he's not going to be ready to play games yet because he's not had a pre-season necessarily. He obviously, it was only 3-4 weeks ago he was playing in the Club World Cup. But for the rest of them, we've got Diarra, Lefay, obviously who both signed this summer, Siddiqui, Adingra, and Talbi are all part of that squad who went over for training. So you would expect to see them play some part. Interesting as well. I don't know if you saw this, but Adjialise, Dennis Sirkin, Leo Hjelde, and Luke O'Nien were all named in the travelling squad. However, they're not going to play any part because we know they're injured. But the club obviously felt it was important that they were part of the group. And all very popular lads as well. So when you're trying to integrate new players, you want the squad to be, I said it's not a jolly up, but there will be team bonding going on. I mean, I noticed the club yesterday said that the players all played golf, for instance. Yeah. I'm sure they've maybe had a couple of drinks on a night time, maybe like 1 or 2 glasses of wine or whatever. But they'll have done stuff together as a group. And that's really important, particularly when you've got big characters like O'Nien, for instance, who is such a popular player that you do almost want them around them players. I mean, if you don't know if you saw when they put the footage from when the new players arrived at the Academy of Light, it was Luke O'Nien showing them around and introducing them and doing them duties. So yeah, it is really important that they're all out there. But I just going back to what I said before, I'm just excited to see these lads with a Sunderland strip on and playing, even if it is just a fitness exercise game against decent opposition. I can't wait to see Talbi run with the ball. Can't wait to see Adingra cut inside and shoot. Can't wait to see, Siddiqui mopping up the ball and giving it 5 yards to somebody after making a thunderous tackle. All these things are what I'm really excited about, even in pre-season games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think for me, Talbi's the one I'm keen to see the most, just because he's the one I know the least about.
Right, yeah.
So he's the one I feel as if I need to do a little bit more learning of. But again, I think that's really important that the injured players are taken out there, just for their mental health and their involvement in the club as well. Football's come on a long way, and it's no longer the case where if you're injured, you're ignored. How many times have you heard it? Players would say, "Oh, I broke my leg. I was in rehab for 6 months," and the manager wouldn't even look at me in the corridor. That's not good. That doesn't foster a team spirit. And yeah, you're right. From what we gather, Leo Hjelde one of the main kind of like characters in the group. I mean, there was again Luke O'Nien. There was footage of him on the bus messing about, beeping the horn, and just being typical Luke O'Nien. And if you don't bring those players out, that's how little cliques start. Whereas it's like, no, if you're a Sunderland player, whether you are injured or not, you are part of the group, and we're all in this together. And that's how it has to be.
Yeah. And obviously the first game we play, which is of course tonight, 8 p.m. kickoff, is against Sevilla of La Liga, who are a club I'm sure that most Sunderland fans have heard of. They've been really successful in terms of European competition. They're always there or thereabouts in La Liga. Obviously, they're not quite Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid or Barcelona, but they're often the best of the rest of that group underneath. And, they will be difficult opposition for us, and that's what we want. Particularly when you're going into the Premier League, you want to be playing against teams who are similarly matched in terms of pedigree, and I think that's really, really important. That when you look at this pre-season program, we've lined up teams who they're not, like you said before. I mean, with all due respect to South Shields last week, that was just a run out for us, doing a local team a favour, giving the fans in the Northeast something to watch. Whereas this is like, okay, now you're playing proper clubs who are going to give you a good test. And Sevilla have already played a game, and they got beat last weekend off Birmingham over in the Algarve. So Birmingham City played them. It was 3-1 to Birmingham. I did see the highlights. What you can glean from highlights of a friendly, the first friendly, they look quite a small team. Birmingham took advantage of that with some set pieces. So when I'm talking about Diarra and Siddiqui and players like that, going to be interested to see what they can do from a physical perspective if they're playing against players who maybe don't really like that. But I don't profess to know a lot about Sevilla. All I'll say is I know who they are, and they're a big club. And with that in mind, you're going to be expecting a good test. And if we can come out the other side having played pretty well, and a couple of the players show some things that get us excited, and most crucially, nobody gets injured, we get through that period, touch wood, without anybody hurting themselves, it'll have been a successful outing.
Yeah, you're right. That's an important thing, because we're already missing a couple of bodies, as we've already touched upon there. So yeah, avoiding injuries would be a bonus. You don't want players not being at 100%, but yeah, if we can avoid injuries, that would be a nice little extra. Pretty impressive from you, Gav. That's pretty dedicated, man. Doing a scouting mission on watching our pre-season opponents in the previous outing.
I don't know if I'd quite call it scouting, a 5-minute video package on YouTube, but I'll take it.
It's 5 minutes more than I've seen of them. But yeah, you're right. They've got a brilliant record in Europe. I think in the last 20 years, they've won, I think it was seven European trophies that I read. And when you look at what we've done in the last 20 years, they're clearly a lot more stable and have been a stronger team than us. Mm-hmm. I think last year they just avoided relegation. I think they had a bit of a dip last year. But again, that might not be a bad thing, because we are potentially going to be not necessarily in a relegation scrap, but we're going to be playing teams in the Premier League who are struggling for form and what have you. So not a bad thing. They are a decent club, and I had a little look on Wikipedia. I think we're all forgetting that they've got Adnan Januzaj in their squad.
Oh, well, so I was going to put you on the spot and ask if you knew which ex-Sunderland player was in there. Right?
So we all need to panic about that, because if he turns it on, I don't even know if he's going to play for them, because I think
he played the second half against Birmingham.
Right.
I looked. He was out on loan last season.
Yes.
But he did play a part in that Birmingham game. I think he was on the bench anyways. But I wonder, he'll probably get a few boos, won't he? Adnan Januzaj, he never made any secret of the fact he didn't particularly want to play for Sunderland when he was here.
No, he was he was a bit of a
arsehole is the word, Andrew.
Yeah. I couldn't put it any better. I was trying to be polite, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, it would be typical Sunderland if he goes and rattles in a hat trick or what have you. But
there's that typical Sunderland again, by the way.
Exactly,
off on the bingo card.
Exactly. But he was on loan last season, and the team he went to did get relegated. So I don't know what his future is. If he does get a game, he's going to want to try and get his way back into the plans, or get him sorted out with a move elsewhere. But it just adds a nice little extra bit of spice for the fans who've gone across. Craig might be there giving him a bit of jip for his past efforts in a Sunderland shirt.
Or lack of efforts, as I would put it.
Yeah.
He's I don't know how many times he's been relegated, but he got relegated with us, relegated last season. Yeah, well, probably says more about him than anybody else. But yeah. Adnan Januzaj, not somebody I want to waste any more of my breath on. I think he was a a waste of space, didn't want to be here, treat the club with contempt, and just, he's one of them players that immediately comes to mind when I think of that era that, like, dragged us down the leagues. And he might have only been here for a season on loan. But he was part of the problem, like everybody else. Anyways, Adnan Januzaj chat over now.
Well, hang on, Gav. It's not over, because you and me have got to talk about him in another pod. Just a little peek behind the curtain for listeners over the next couple of days. He might feature in another pod we're doing. So you've not quite been able to move on from him just yet, I'm afraid, mate.
Yeah, well, maybe this is kind of like the warm up to that. So I'm going to go really aggressively into that podcast talking about Adnan Januzaj. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be a good test for us. We're going to see some new players, hopefully. We're probably going to get more of an idea of how we certainly plan to play in pre-season, I think, with the way we line up, because in the Shields game, we played two different systems. We played, because I think that was mainly down to the players available. But now we've got more players available. You do wonder whether that'll change a little bit. So that's interesting to me. We played the first half in more of like a 4-3-2-1 system with two inside wingers cutting inside, and Lefebvre playing a little bit deeper as well. That was interesting. And then in the second half, and again, I think this was mainly down to just who was available. We went with two up front, but it worked. I quite like that. Mayenda and Abdoulaye playing together in that second half. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to seeing. Obviously looking forward to seeing the new players, as I mentioned, and also looking forward to just seeing how fit we look, because I don't know about you, and it's really tough to kind of judge this fairly, because you're playing against South Shields, who, South Shields are a professional football club, so they train every day, or the semi-professional maybe, but they'll have been going hard on their pre-season. They'd already had a game before they played us. And to me, we just looked several levels above in terms of fitness, but you would expect that against a National League North club. I want to see how we look against these, because like I said, they played last week against Birmingham. So they've had a really intense game there. They've been in Portugal for over a week now. I don't know how long they've been in there, but they played in Portugal against Birmingham last week. So they must have been there at least a few days for training. They've been training all week in the Algarve, so they're going to be fit. And that's something else I'm looking forward to seeing, is just how we match up in terms of fitness. But there's a few things to look forward to. We always have to caveat these conversations by saying it's only pre-season, results don't matter, performances don't matter. But I'm starting to change my opinion a little bit on this, because I actually think when Lebris is talking about setting standards and things, he doesn't want to be going into the season having lost loads of games. He wants to be going into that West Ham game having won every single game, I think. Because in terms of momentum and mentality for the group, that if you can play well against good teams and go into the season having played well, you're going to be pretty confident going into that West Ham game. So I don't know, where do you stand on all that pre-season results and whether they matter or not?
I think they do matter. I think you can't turn it on and off like a tap. I think at the start of the season, you need to have a few wins under your belt, a bit of confidence, a bit of momentum. I mean, admittedly, in pre-season, you can afford to lose as long as you lose in the right way. And if Lebris has given certain players certain instructions and they followed that through and given him food for thought for the real stuff, that might be enough for him to think it's a worthwhile exercise. But yeah, if we lose because we don't look interested, we don't look organised, that's not good at all. The fitness thing is one of the things you can tell in pre-season. I think Sevilla start their season, I think the same weekend as us, or around the same time. So they're going to be at a similar stage in their preparations to us. And I think what's going to be really interesting over the next few months, Gav, in terms of our fitness is, towards the end of last season, we kind of had a mini pre-season then. It was the big talking point before the playoffs. Were we doing the right thing in not throwing away those last few league games, but we were certainly not as intense as we would be in a regular league game. And then come the playoffs, we were able to keep going until the final minutes of extra time in the semi-final. We scored a winner in the final minutes at Wembley when Sheffield United looked absolutely shot. So I am keen to see what we do in the Premier League and whether we are maybe a little bit fresher than some clubs because of how the last couple of months have gone.
Well, we'll see what happens, mate. I'm looking forward to the game tonight, and I'm hoping that I can find somewhere in Sunderland that's got it on because I'm out on the drink tonight. So if I miss the performance, then there we go. But I'm hoping there's a pub somewhere where playing the game so I can watch it. Shall we move on to a little bit of transfer talk before we go? Let's have a little round up of what's going on. Well, I don't know if you've seen this story early on Friday. It was claimed by Le Parisien, who I don't know their validity, but they've got 3.4 million followers on Twitter, so they're obviously well followed. They're claiming that Armand Laurienté is very close to a transfer to Sunderland. He is, of course, the Sassuolo wide forward who's been linked with us actually all summer. This one hasn't gone away. Not someone I can profess to know a great deal about, but having done these podcasts, have watched a little bit of footage and have read up on him and stuff. He was the top scorer in Serie B last season. Sassuolo got promoted back to Serie A, and he was a massive, massive part of that. Previously played for Lorient, which is, these links keep coming up, and, it should be no surprise to anybody that he's somebody who our manager and new sporting director are already well acquainted with. So not a massive surprise, but what interests me about him is obviously he would cost a lot of money. So let's say Le Parisien are true to their word here, and this is a deal that's close. It's going to cost a lot of money, and crucially, he plays left wing. And we've been talking this week about Romain Mundel's future, whether he might be the subject of interest from clubs in France and elsewhere. But it's an interesting one to me that we've already signed Adingra, we've already signed Tolby, we've got Romain Mundel, and then we're looking at somebody else. And it's almost like, is he being signed to play that position? Can he play through the middle? Because I wouldn't be surprised at that either. So an interesting link. Again, I know we've already talked a few times about him on this podcast a few weeks ago, but if this is as close as it apparently is according to Le Parisien, I'm very interested in this one. This throws a spanner in the works in terms of like the squad shape up for me.
Yeah, it does. And what we don't know is over these last couple of weeks when his name hasn't been mentioned as much, is that because Sunderland had walked away from the deal and have now come back in for him? Or is that just because it's been a longer process and talks have been ongoing for a prolonged period? So yeah, we don't know. Is it something like Mundel or somebody else could potentially be off? So we thought, all right, we now need to go back in. We don't know what's happened there. But he's obviously somebody we've admired for a long time. I think he can play in a couple of positions, which is something Sunderland like to have. And that would be very interesting if that did mean that Mundel or somebody else was to move on. I mean, we've discussed Mundel recently, and I wouldn't want to see him go, but we don't know what type of money we're talking about here. We don't know what the player wants. We don't know what the club wants. So, yeah, it's interesting time in that news, I would say.
Yeah, it was reported this week as well that Mundel's been offered a new deal.
Yeah,
and the club want to tie him down. So, look, we've said this repeatedly. You need lots of good options in the Premier League. Laurienté, I don't know loads about him, but when I did the podcast a few weeks ago with Alex Barker, and by the way, if we do sign Laurienté or we look like we're about to sign him and it starts getting firmed up, I'll try and grab Alex for a chat because he knows quite a lot about him. He was saying to me that it's an interesting one because if Laurienté's basically got one thing, and that's cutting inside and banging them in from 15, 20 yards. He said that's his, pretty much all he does, which reminds me a lot of Mundel, actually, and reminds me a lot of Isidore and Mayenda to an extent, or, very different players. But we seem to be targeting a very specific type of forward, don't we? Pace, power, ability to score goals from range, trickiness. Like everyone we sign seems to have that same skill set. And if you remember back to when Wilson Isidore signed, he was described to us as a wide left player.
Yeah.
And he played a full season through the middle. So you wouldn't be surprised if Laurienté is our our next striker, for instance, if he's capable of playing that position. I mean, I think he has played centre forward quite a bit in his career. So, it tallies with what we've done in recent years, doesn't it?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a massive shock. I think you're right. We do have a certain type of player we go for. And again, if you go back to the playoffs, the semi-final game at Coventry, Isidore, the first goal for us that Isidore scored was from him peeling out wide. We broke up the pitch very quickly. I think it was Lefay's played the ball into him and he's cut inside and scored. That might be a tactic we see a lot next season where we do have to keep it tight and then use our pace to catch teams out. Laurienté, from what I gather, is slightly older. He isn't a wonder kid, I don't think, anymore. I think he's a bit more established.
Ancient. He's 26-year-old. He's absolutely turns 27 in December.
Well, there you go. Grandad Laurienté there. So, again, that just confirms what we've said in the past about Sunderland are flexible with with the type of player they're bringing in. It doesn't have to be a certain age if they think they'll do a job. Just one thing I would say on Mundell, and any players who are linked with moves away, if they are interested in moving away and it doesn't pay off, I don't think we're going to be left with unhappy faces around the squad. I think the club handle transfer bids quite well. I wouldn't be surprised that if a bid did come in, I wouldn't be surprised if the club sat down with those players and said, here's a bid, we're telling you, we're keeping you in the loop, but this is what we see for you, and this is why we're either potentially willing to let you go or potentially going to reject the bid. And again, that's another important thing. You don't want players in the group rocking the boat because they weren't involved or they were denied a move. And I think it's important that we handle any bids properly and do things the right way by ourselves and by the player.
Yeah, I've just been looking there as well. Through his career, he's obviously primarily a left winger. 95 games playing off the left, but he's played 29 off the right in his career.
Okay.
And 13 as a centre forward, 13 as a left midfielder, 9 as a second striker. So he can play pretty much anywhere across the attack. Yeah. And I just think that's the kind of forward. We don't go out and sign out and out strikers anymore. We go and sign players who can play multiple positions, like Mayenda, for instance. We all love him, and we think I think he's going to step up. I just think he will. But actually, if you look across the span of last season, he played quite a lot of games as a wide player. We were shoehorning him all over the place, and he did a great job wherever he was put. So I don't have a problem with that. I think we kind of get too wedded to particular positions. Yes, this guy's played most of his career as a left winger, but given the way the club act, you wouldn't be surprised if we brought somebody like that in and played them somewhere completely different. No. It wouldn't surprise you at all.
No. And what we've got to bear in mind as well is the game's different now. It is quite common for players to be brought on from the bench. I think, is it in the Premier League? Can you name 9 subs and perhaps make 5 subs in a game?
Yeah, I think so.
I might have. Apologies for catching you on the hop there, but substitutes now have a much more important role in games. And if you look on your bench and you've got 3 or 4 options there who can do different things, that just gives you the flexibility to change a game. You're right, we don't sign your traditional centre forward very often now. We sign players who can do 1 or 2 different jobs. If that creates competition, if that gives us options, then that's a very positive thing, and it gives us a bit of hope. Means we're not one-dimensional, put it that way.
Yeah. The story from Le Parisien goes as follows. This is the English translation, so forgive me if any of this is badly translated, but it says, things are accelerating for Armand Laurienté at Sunderland, a key player in Sassuolo's return to Serie A. The 26-year-old French striker who scored 19... he played mainly off the left, but interesting use of words. French striker who has scored 19 goals and provided 6 assists and was voted the league's best player last season is very close to a move to the Premier League. According to our information, the clubs are now in advanced negotiations and could finalise the deal in the coming hours. The former Laurienté, easy for me to say, I never get through these without doing that. The former Laurienté player who left for Italy in the summer of 2022 would be reunited with both his former coach, Regis Lebris, and his former teammate Enzo Lefebvre, who has signed a permanent contract with the newly promoted English club. So that's the story as it happens. Probably change by the time this pod goes out, because we are recording this not on Saturday morning. But yeah, things seem to be progressing on the transfer front. Quickly blast through the rest of the names, Andrew, before we go. Somebody we didn't talk about on the last pod because this wasn't out there when we recorded, but Frank Zambo Anguissa, the Napoli midfielder, 29-year-old Cameroon international, fits with that profile of signing every player from African nations. He's been linked, and apparently we're very interested. That one was reported by Fabrizio Romano, Keith Downey, etc. And like I said before, if they're reporting it, there's going to be a grain of truth to it. So we'll see what happens with that one. But it looks like we're looking for a very specific type of midfield player. Big, imposing, physical, aggressive players. That's what he is. Granit Xhaka, of course, is the main link that we're seeing with that position. Bild reported on Thursday that Sunderland had placed a bid, but it was less than what Leverkusen expected for him. And also on top of that, we've been linked with Amir Richardson, who is, again, another African player, Moroccan international, plays for Fiorentina. Big lad who can play in the middle of the park. A lot younger than the other two. He's 23-year-old. But again, a very specific type of midfielder we're talking. And it's good to see we've got our options open. I mean, I would love to sign Granit Xhaka. We did a whole pod the other day that people can go back and listen to, where we talk all about Granit Xhaka, and it's still very relevant. So if you haven't heard it, make sure you listen to it. But still, when I see those names, I really want that big name signing. Yeah. I really want us to go out and sign Granit Xhaka. I think that would be such a statement. But Frank Zambo Anguissa and Amir Richardson, again, not experts on these players, but play for big clubs, particularly Anguissa. I know he used to play for Fulham in the Premier League, so he's got experience of playing Premier League football. But I'm not disheartened by them links. If we don't get Granit Xhaka, and I keep saying this, and I think I even said this on that pod with you when we talked about Xhaka. If it's not him, we're going to sign somebody good. We are. You can tell by the quality of the names we're being linked with. We will sign somebody of that profile for big money who is ready to step into the Premier League and is probably a level up from what we were maybe expecting to recruit. So I'm not worried at this minute. If Xhaka doesn't progress, then I'm not worried. I'm quite confident we're going to sign somebody who's decent.
Yeah, I'm in exactly the same boat as you. I would love it to be Xhaka just because it brings that extra element of excitement around it. But this isn't scattergun. The players we're all being linked with are of a similar type. And I think it's just a case of we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. It would be foolish to spend a load of time on Granit Xhaka and for it not to come off and for us to be back to square one. But if we're looking at another couple of potential deals at the same time, it's that thing about flexibility and keeping our options open and not kind of shoehorning and forcing our way down a certain avenue. We're just trying to do things sensibly and openly and with as much protection to ourselves so that if something doesn't happen, we've not dropped ourselves in it.
Yeah. Centre-halves as well. We still haven't signed a big name centre-half. Again, on that pod we did the other day, we chatted all about the centre-half position, but a new name has been linked by L'Equipe, reporting that ourselves and Bournemouth have had €27 million bids rejected for their Lille centre-half Befode Diakite, 24-year-old centre-half who I think is of, I want to say, Guinean descent, but hasn't been capped by them. Does have caps at France youth level. And so we don't, not just yet, unless Guinea call him up and we sign him and call him up for the African Cup of Nations, we maybe don't have to worry too much about that one. But Befode Diakite, never heard of him. €27 million is an outrageous amount of money, so he must be good. That's all I'm thinking. But a name certainly worth keeping an eye on. Again, I keep repeating myself, but we're committing money and bids to big positions on the pitch, centre-half being one of them. We're going to sign somebody, so wait and see what happens with that one. I mentioned before about Mundo's new contract. Looks like Monaco and PSV are still sniffing around. I did see that PSV had sold the winger, whose name escapes us now, but I think he's gone now. And that was the rumour that they were going to sell this guy and he was going to be replaced by potentially Romain Mundle, or they were going to look to replace him with Romain Mundle. So yeah, I mean, lots to sort of stew on there, isn't there? I mean, we've been linked with some big names, and it's you've seen the reaction to some of the links that have been made from people outside the Sunderland bubble, but everyone's really excited about what Sunderland are doing right now. So I imagine that come Monday or Tuesday, whenever we record another one of these news pods, that there'll be other names, there'll be more concrete links. We might even have signed a player or two. I mean, this summer's been so entertaining. I'm just loving this. I know we spent a lot of time today talking about the playing side of things, and I'm not normally someone who gets really invested in like transfer talk, because ultimately, until they've got that scarf above their head, I'm not particularly interested. But I've been the complete opposite this summer. I don't know about you. I'm so invested in this stuff. It's just exciting. It's like the club are playing real life Football Manager or something, and we're getting to see a play out in front of us. I'm really enthused by all this, particularly names of players I've never heard of. I get more excited about that than I do the ones I do know, you know.
It's nice when a name just crops up from nowhere and you don't know who they are, but you do a bit of reading, you listen to some of the experts that you've had on the pod. It's nice when they turn out to be attractive propositions. I don't like the rubbish paper talk. You know, there was a couple of weeks ago it seemed that any player that was mentioned in the paper, we were linked with him, Leeds were linked with him, and Burnley were linked with him, and that gets a bit tiresome. But when it's stories with a bit of substance, it is exciting, and it's good to know that in a fortnight's time, our squad could have a very different look to it. But you'd like to think that it'll look good. We don't know who the players are, but we know the type they'll be. And it's all promising at the moment.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, mate. Like I say, it's fun at the minute, and we've got a game tonight, as I mentioned at the very top, and we've just chatted about the Sevilla game. We've got a match tonight, which I think after the match, you and Martin are going to record a very late night reaction pod. So yeah, that one will be available hopefully either in the wee hours or on early Sunday morning for our listeners, and hopefully you're chatting about a win and some more exciting football and goals, and you can come away and say, "Oh, Talby looked amazing," and Siddiqui looked amazing. Let's hope it's a lot like that, and it's not, "Oh, we got tonked 5-0 and it was crap."
That's the plan anyway. You'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell by how long the episode is. If it's only 10 minutes, it's been a dog of a game.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, mate. But yeah, thanks very much for joining me once again, and I look forward to listening to how you two react to that match, because, of course, I'll not be on it for once. People are probably sick of hearing my voice. But yeah. Always good to talk to you, mate. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Good fun, as always.
Yeah, and thanks to the listeners. Like I say, loads of pods coming. If you haven't caught up on everything we've done this week, make sure you do. I mentioned a bunch of them at the top of the show there, but really do think the pod that Chris did with Andy Sixsmith is worth a listen, because it just gives you a little bit of insight into what it was like at the academy last week when pre-season started, and conversations he had with Luke O'Nien, Wilson Isidore, Patrick Roberts, Regis Labrise, Oscar Chamberlain even. You know, he was talking about some of the interactions he had with Oscar and sort of changes that are going on at the club behind the scenes and things. So really is worth listening to that one, but there's plenty to catch up on. You know where we are. We are all over social media. If you're not subscribed already on your pod feeds, then make sure you do get subscribed, because like I say, we do drop brand new podcasts every single day, free of charge. We don't charge a penny, and we do it for the love. And, you know, we might get bored eventually and we might stop doing them daily, but at the minute, everyone's loving them. We're loving them, so we'll keep them coming. But thank you very much. Like I say, we will be back with a reaction pod after the game tonight, so you can catch up with how the game went with Andrew and Martin. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.